been a long time coming. We haven't spoken to this man for a very long time. It was actually, he was the first interview that we ever did when we started the channel with a rival fan. Let's bring him on. Lee Lawler, Newcastle Fans TV. Lee, it's been a long time, mate. How are you?
I've had better summers, put it that way. I'm sure you're gonna bring that up any moment. But I have been enjoying the sunshine, even sunny up bonny Newcastle. So we're getting the sun again. So I'm alright. I'm just itching now for pre-season. I've already gone to non-league games, so I'm just waiting for pre-season to come. So I can start getting into some games. But how are yous?
Yeah, I'm doing good, mate. I mean, I couldn't believe I'll be saying this at the back end of last season, just about surviving relegation, and now Spurs are, 230, 40 million deep into the transfer window. I can't quite believe this is my football club and what we're doing right now. But yeah, look, we got to talk about Sandro Tonali. Could you envisage, through 2 weeks ago, that this could be a serious option for Sandro Tonali to join Spurs for £100 million?
Well, I did say on Sky back in March, I think he would be the one player that will go this summer. Anthony Gordon, I was like, I wasn't 100% certain because I think he's dipped, and I think Tonali's form's a bit of a dip last season as well. But I think you have overpaid for him. I generally do. I think he's probably worth about 70 million. But I think you can easily say that about Newcastle. You look at like the signings of Wissar and Valdemar at the end of last summer. We've definitely overpaid. But to get up to 100 million for a player he was good last season, but he had a better season the season before. He was like literally that was his peak. But there is question marks around, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate from Spurs fans here. So there's the questions: why has he moved to Spurs? Because you would think naturally he's being sold the project idea to Newcastle when we had the takeover and getting into Champions League football and winning the League Cup and what have you. And you would think the natural progression then, okay, he's going to join a club that wins things. I'm not being disrespectful because we don't win things either. But, like a Man City, or he's going to go to a Barca or Real Madrid, like a huge name. But he's obviously admitted it in his interview at the airport, literally just saying that he's obviously new baby, new family, moving to London for the lifestyle. And of course, the Zerbi comes from Brescia, which obviously is his hometown. So he's being sold a project, which we were a little bit surprised about, I can't lie.
Yeah, so do you think the interest from City and Arsenal, do you think that was very serious? Do you think they weren't actually prepared to pay the money that would have taken to get Tonali there? Why? I understand he's decided to leave Newcastle and come to Tottenham, but do you believe he's actually rejected the likes of City or Arsenal, or do you think they were never really that interested?
I think it's the case that we weren't going to put the money down for that kind of money. It's a lot of money for a midfielder who was good last season, but there's nowhere near Bruno Guimaraes' level. That's the one player we were petrified of losing because he is literally tier 1 for us. I think Tonali's probably a tier 2 in that level, just behind him. But the question is, were Arsenal in for him? There was them rumours, Man City, but obviously they've gone and got Elliot Anderson, ironically, a former player of ours. But I think Spurs, I think you're improving your midfield. I really do. But you're definitely overpaid. But time will tell. Obviously, he's already, and yesterday, he's already chirping on at the airport that he's already talking about Milan again. And we had that when he joined Newcastle. It was like, oh God, did he really want to be at Newcastle? Because obviously he was more or less forced out of his football club because Milan were obviously in financial difficulties, and then we had the gambling ban, and it feels like a bit of a kick in the teeth. I think with Tonali, not as bad as he's at though. I must stress.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of posts on X from Newcastle fans around Tonali saying, we stuck by him during his gambling ban, and he's only been here for 2 years. Is there a sense of betrayal from you in terms of thinking about Tonali?
A little bit, but I think what gets forgotten about, he actually took a bit of a pay cut during that ban, which isn't out there much. So a lot of people don't bring that up. And as part of that, he had the clause in that Newcastle could extend it by another year to 2030. So a little bit, yeah. He hasn't stuck around for too long. Obviously, he got engaged up here. He's obviously Mrs. Pregnant up here. He's won a trophy up here. So he will have fond memories himself, but supporters will not look at that. You know that yourselves. When football moves fast,
Yeah.
Do players have loyalty? There's not much of that left in the modern game. And he's getting a massive, massive increase in wages. I think I've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, is it something like 275,000 a week? And he's getting, obviously, the luxury of living in London with all that money, and he's an hour away from Milan. I definitely think his missus has had a say in it as well, mind.
So, from your part, how do you think he'll be remembered at Newcastle? Do you think he'll be remembered fondly, or he'll just be remembered as a guy who didn't stick around for too long?
I think it probably a mixture of both, to be honest with you. I think, obviously, winning the League Cup is obviously that for us. We've talked to you doing the years many a times. My dream running a YouTube channel was to cover us winning the trophy. That's all I ever wanted. And I've seen that, and he was largely part of that, along with even Isaac to some extent. But Tonali's left. He says that there was what was interesting at the airport, that he said there was already agreement in place. What I didn't like is these journalists flapping his gums every couple of weeks. It was constant. It was like, yeah, he's obviously fishing for a move, and because literally the player would tell the agent, stop what you're doing. But it was constant. It's like when that happens, there is something happening behind the scenes. So it's a mixture of both. To the answer to your question, ask me that in a few months' time when it dies down. How will I really feel? Because we might look back on it that, because you've got to remember the season before last, he was absolutely sensational. And it was nice to see not just Newcastle fans picking it up on it. It was the neutrals, it was commentators, it was journalists. Wow, what a player Newcastle have. But obviously, like many, and it's not just him, but his form did dip last season, and that's the reason why we finished mid-table.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside looking in, I've always really appreciated Sandro Tonali and what he's brought to that Newcastle midfield. But what you've obviously watched him week in, week out, what kind of player are we getting, and how's he going to fit in to the Tottenham team?
So what I always say about him is, and I'll use the expression lungs. He has literally 4 lungs. That's what he has. He will get around that pitch, and even if it's in the first minute or the 90th minute, he will be sprinting to that corner flag, whichever direction, helping his teammate out. Technically, he's absolutely fantastic. He can ping a ball left, right. He can get his foot in, but he should contribute, I feel, a lot more goals. His numbers aren't particularly great. He's a shy lad. He's not one of them that would be a speaker in the dressing room. I think he's quite quiet. He very rarely catches a smile. It's just his personality. But I think he will improve your midfield. Obviously, I know he's had a couple of difficult seasons domestically, and the only way is up for you. But obviously, as I go back to Newcastle fans, you've seen it on social media. They can't quite fathom why he's gone to Spurs.
Yeah.
And I know we get it thrown back at Newcastle's faces that you have bigger commercial success by far, in terms of you've got better stadiums, you've got better training grounds. Historically, you've won more trophies down the years, but there's still that little bit of, why has he gone to Spurs? And that sounds so disrespectful. And I go back to what I said earlier, is we expected him to then go on and, play for Champions Leagues and win Premier League titles or La Liga or whatever. So I think you have got a good player though. As much as I hate to say that.
Where in the Premier League, where would you rank him in terms of central midfielders? Like, where would he be in the top 5, top 10? Where would you think he places for you?
Well, depending on what you want to go by. If you want to go by numbers, it's not particularly high. But if you want to go by everything else, it would be. So I think he's definitely probably in the top 10 centre midfielders in the Premier League, because there isn't that many that are, in my opinion, box-to-box midfielders like him. I think he's definitely up there. I think the season before, as I mentioned, his good season, he's probably in the top 3. He was that good. He was absolutely sensational. If you can get that form back, you'll have some player on your hands. You really, really will. But time will see. But it's one of them. It's like I'm fond of him because obviously what he brought. We won a trophy with him. Newcastle, by the way, are getting some money, and it's an absolute fantastic piece of business for us, because us as a football club, we have to trade better, and we don't really. Let's be honest. I think we're way behind because Mike Ashley didn't put any investment in. So when other clubs have grown their commercial stance, Newcastle couldn't. So we're forever playing catch up. So we've got to use that money wisely. And obviously we're linked to Manzabi, who's doing bits for Switzerland. So hopefully we can get that one over the line.
Yeah, we talk about overpayments. 100 million, but isn't case in point last season? I think Newcastle were quite a good evidence of how quality sometimes is just worth paying for, because Isaac, you sold for 115 million. You know, it's a massive piece of cash there. You got a massive fee for him, and you think, okay, we've got all this money. Let's go replace him. Then you spent 70 on Voltemada and 55 on Wissa, but you just couldn't replicate what Isaac gave you, could it? So, as much as we've overpaid, isn't replacing him going to be just as difficult as good as getting that cash is? If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, replacing quality is difficult. I mean, I can throw that back at you and say, have you replaced Harry Kane?
Exactly.
No, we haven't.
Exactly.
No,
Goal
100%.
scorers, goal scorers are the most difficult thing to replace. And you look at, I'll give you an example of World Cup. If you take Messi out of Argentina are bang average. Take Harry Kane out of England are bang average. You take Haaland out of Norway, you see where I'm going with, don't you?
Yeah, 100%.
It's very, very difficult to replace goals. And yes, Valdemar started the season off fantastically, and then he's obviously form's dipped after scoring the own goal against the Mackhams, and then he's played in midfield, and Wissa was basically injured, and we expect bigger things of you and Wissa. But as you know, goals are incredibly difficult, and I'll say that with Tonali, because Newcastle now have to go and find a replacement and someone that comes in straight away, right from the off. We can't have a player that needs time, because we've obviously bought Ramsey for that. We need someone to come straight in off the off who's going to play alongside Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton.
Yeah, what is going on at Newcastle, by the way? You got all this money, and why are you selling so many players this summer? Obviously, Tonali's gone, Gordon's gone, 70 million. Please don't tell me you're going to sell Bruno Guimaraes to those lot. Please don't tell me.
We can't. I'm telling you, we cannot sell Bruno Guimaraes. He's the one world-class player that we have. He is literally right up there. He can play for any club. And you've seen it, the World Cup, he's already got 4 assists this season. The play through Brazil goes through him. We cannot lose him. And that offer that Arsenal put in, it was insulting. The 55 million, it really, really was. So we can't lose him. We've got great money for Gordon, up to 80 million. I mean, he had another indifferent season. We can't afford to lose any more, and it'll be interesting when pre-season comes back a week on Monday, because Eddie Howe's going to be shoved cameras in his face, and unfortunately he'll be the one that has to answer them, because the board, whether you like it or not, are hiding. And this is probably the lowest point, I would say, in the reign of the PIF, 100%, because of no communication.
Well, for you, there's been a lot of talk about Tottenham being able to spend all this money, over 200 million, after finishing 17th twice at Newcastle, and Villa, despite last few seasons, finishing above Spurs, are still hamstrung with PSR, and they're not able to spend, and they're having to sell to buy and all these kind of things. Where do you sit on that? Do you understand how Tottenham are able to spend? Does it frustrate you? Do you think the rules need changing? Where's your stance? He's rejoining.
He said his phone is overheating.
Okay.
His phone's done. Well,
damn. Well, I guess we'll never know. Send us a voice note.
Yeah, so the question, thanks, Sim. I think I do understand why Spurs can spend that kind of money. I think also you've got to remember it's the new SCR as well from the 1st of July. So obviously that previous 3 years can fall off. Look, I think obviously Spurs have commercially grown up and down for the last few years, and having even things like hosting NFL games, concerts. Obviously, they've grown commercially. Newcastle can't. Well, as I say, we'll go back to Mike Ashley. He didn't do any of that. And I know a lot of Newcastle fans begrudge Spurs for voting against them with the takeover. And that probably might linger with the Tonali transfer. And maybe some Newcastle fans don't like the fact that they feel you might even say that some more salty about it. But I think Spurs can. You look at the big 6 commercially, they're still way out in front, and the teams like Aston Villa and Newcastle are having to play catch up. Some of the rules probably do need a little bit tweaked, and obviously the SCR has come in where if you're not in Europe, you can spend 85%, but if you are in Europe, it goes down to 70%. But realistically, if you are trying to get into Europe, you've got to stay to 70%. Which is difficult because Newcastle have just received a small fine from UEFA saying, yes, we can spend up to 85% this season, but realistically, we'll probably need to stay at 70 if we're going to get it in Europe, just to match and make sure UEFA are happy. But I don't know, it's something needs to give, and obviously, it's the only business that I know in football where you can't put money into your own football club and invest it. Mental. It's absolutely mental. But thanks very much for having us on, guys.
Big up to Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Big up to you. It's good to see you, Lee. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, great call. Great insight as well into Tonali and into Newcastle. I see a lot of frustrated Villa and Newcastle fans, frustrated with the fact that we're able to spend, vast amount of sums of money, and they're struggling, to get their targets, and they're not allowed to pump money into their club. But at the end of the day, look, I get it. I think if I was in their position, I'd also be very frustrated because they have been better than us over the last few years, and they should be rewarded with that. I think the frustration comes from when we were growing up in football, when we were watching it, and I think how it started in the early days was how were you able to spend lots of money was by winning things, and you get rewarded for good performance on the pitch. That's how United were able to spend all their money, back in the 90s and stuff, winning all the trophies, and they were able to get the best players.
If a rich owner comes in and just pumps money in.
Yeah, that'll happen with Blackburn, happen with Chelsea, obviously.
It doesn't matter because there was no rules in place to
also
kind of protect anything. Exactly, like Blackburn, that's why they won that Premier League.
Yeah. Because
Jack Walker came in and just funded the whole thing. Chelsea, Man City, all that, and then Newcastle come along and their big ownership, and everyone's like, all the Newcastle fans are excited. Then they're hamstrung by all this PSR.
And we changed the rules, so I get the frustration because they just think either way we should be rewarded for good performance on the pitch, like getting Champions League and whatever, and we should be not rewarded, but we should be able to take advantage of the fact we've got trillionaire or whatever, big multi-billionaire owners like. So, we should be gaining the advantages that other teams have in the past, but unfortunately they're just not able to because of the new rules. But the new rules are in place, to stop things like Leeds happening and other clubs who have put their club in financial difficulty in the pursuit of higher footballing performance, and there's had big consequences for some clubs. So the rules are there for a purpose, but the consequences are those rules are. The teams with the biggest revenues are always going to have that advantage. So until Villa and Newcastle are maximising their revenues like Tottenham are, they won't ever be able to spend as much as we will. Yeah. That's the reality. We make more in revenue than they do. They combined.
Yeah, it's true. But then it kind of does become very much a closed shop with the top six. The top six can basically do what they want pretty much, and everyone else are scrambling around and hamstrung by these PSR rules.
Yeah, part of me would, I think, I don't know how you change it. Do you just let
City was so lucky that Sheikh Mansour came along before these rules came in.
But what should the rules be? Should the rules just be take the handbrake off and just let everyone spend what they want, and then risk other clubs owners putting their own clubs into massive debt and all this kind of stuff, and risking it, but then it allows the likes of Villa and Newcastle to maybe pump money into the club and then compete? Or should it be on the likes of Newcastle and Villa to maximise their revenues more and concentrate on that? But they're a football club at the end of the day, and that's their main focus. So their focus at the moment isn't let's get more concerts in, let's develop a racing F1 track like Tottenham, let's do all these things. Their Villa's revenue is 97% ratio. Ours was 42%. It makes a big difference, all these things. So, I don't know what the answer is. I think right now, as the rules are, the answer is you just got to play by the rules, and the answer is you just got to get more revenue.